Most opportunities in life do not come from what you plan. They come from how people feel about you when you are not there. That may sound uncomfortable, but it explains something many people quietly notice. Two people can have similar skills, similar effort, even similar timing, yet one of them keeps getting chances they never expected, while the other keeps waiting. A big part of that difference is not visible. It is built in small moments that seem unrelated at the time. Giving is one of those moments. Not giving in a dramatic way, not giving to impress anyone, just small, consistent acts where you choose to be useful, patient, or supportive when you do not have to. At first, nothing obvious happens. No reward appears. No opportunity suddenly shows up. It can even feel like those moments disappear as quickly as they come. But they do not disappear. They are stored in how people experience you. Most people move through life focusing on what they can control, their effort, their goals, their plans. That makes sense. But opportunities are often controlled by something else. They are controlled by decisions other people make. And people do not make those decisions only based on logic. They make them based on trust, comfort, and memory. This is where giving starts to matter in a way most people miss. A person who gives, even in small ways, creates a different kind of experience for others. They listen when it is easier not to. They help without turning it into a transaction. They respond with patience when pressure would justify the opposite. These things seem small, but they create a feeling. And over time, that feeling becomes a pattern. People begin to associate that person with ease, reliability, and respect. Not because anyone announced it, but because they felt it repeatedly. That is how trust begins. Not through one big act, but through many small ones that quietly add up. Once that trust exists, something else starts to form. Memory. People start remembering the person differently, not as someone who is simply present, but as someone who made situations better, someone who reduced tension instead of increasing it, someone who added value without needing attention. That kind of memory stays, and it shows up later, often when the original moment is long forgotten. Someone is in a meeting trying to decide who to involve in a project. They do not have complete information. They cannot fully measure skill or potential, so they rely on what they remember. A name comes to mind, not because of a resume, because of a feeling. They handled things well, they were easy to work with, they helped when it mattered. That is how opportunities begin to form. Quietly, indirectly, without the person even being present. Most people try to chase opportunities directly. They network aggressively. They try to impress. They try to position themselves in visible ways. That can work sometimes, but it also creates pressure. Giving works differently. It does not chase the opportunity. It shapes how people think when the opportunity appears. And once that shift happens, the process becomes almost invisible. People start opening small doors. They mention your name in passing. They include you in conversations you did not expect. They trust you with things that are not publicly announced. None of this feels dramatic when it happens, but over time, it changes direction. A simple example is easy to overlook. Someone helps a colleague understand something without making them feel small. It takes a few minutes. There is no reward, no recognition. Weeks later, that same colleague is asked for a recommendation. They remember that moment, not in detail, but in feeling. That person would be good. That is it. A small act, carried forward through memory, turns into an opportunity that could not have been planned. This is why giving often looks inefficient in the short term. You invest time, attention, or energy, and nothing immediate comes back. From a purely transactional view, it seems like a loss. But life is not purely transactional. It is relational. And relationships do not operate on immediate return. They operate on accumulated perception. A person who consistently gives creates a different kind of presence in other people's minds. They are easier to trust, easier to include, easier to support. And that ease matters more than people admit, because when decisions are uncertain, people move toward what feels safe. This does not mean giving guarantees success. It does not protect anyone from setbacks, unfairness, or missed chances. Some people will not notice. Some will not care. Some may even take advantage. That is part of reality. But even then, something important is still happening. Giving is shaping the kind of person others are more willing to bet on. And in many situations, being someone people are willing to bet on matters more than being the most technically perfect option. This is where things begin to shift on a deeper level. Giving does not only change how others see you, it also changes how you see yourself. Most people operate from a mindset of protection. They try to avoid loss. They guard their time. They calculate their effort. Again, that is not always wrong, but it can slowly create a sense that everything must be earned before it is given. When a person chooses to give without immediate return, even in small ways, that mindset begins to loosen. They stop seeing themselves only as someone who needs to take from life. They begin to see themselves as someone who can add to it. That shift is subtle, but it changes behavior. A person who feels capable of contributing moves differently. They speak with more calm. They react with less insecurity. They do not feel the need to prove themselves in every interaction. That creates a different presence, and presence affects opportunity. People are drawn to those who make interactions feel stable and human. Not perfect, not impressive all the time, just steady. A person who gives often creates that steadiness, and over time, that steadiness becomes a quiet form of influence. Around this point, it is worth noticing something many people have experienced, but rarely think about. There are moments when a small act from someone else stayed with you longer than it should have. Not because it was big, but because it arrived at the right time. A bit of understanding, a bit of support. Something simple, but it changed how you felt that day. Why do moments like that stay so strongly? And why do they sometimes affect how you see that person for years? If something like that has ever happened to you, I'd genuinely like to hear it. Part of the answer is that giving often meets people at points they do not show publicly. Everyone carries some level of pressure, uncertainty, or fatigue. Most of it remains hidden. When someone offers even a small amount of relief in those moments, it stands out. It feels different from the usual interactions, and because it feels different, it is remembered differently. That memory becomes part of how people make decisions later, not always consciously, but reliably. This is one of the reasons opportunities created through giving feel unpredictable. They do not follow a straight line. You do not help someone and immediately receive something back. The path is longer, more complex, and often invisible. A moment here connects to a decision there. A small act today influences a conversation months later. A feeling created once becomes a reason someone trusts you again. By the time the opportunity appears, it no longer looks connected to the original act. But it is. This is where many people misunderstand giving. They expect a direct exchange. I did this, so I should get that. When that does not happen, they assume it did not work. But giving does not operate on direct exchange. It operates on accumulated effect. An accumulated effect takes time. Over time, small acts begin to stack, not visibly, but psychologically and socially. People start describing you in certain ways: reliable, easy to work with, thoughtful, calm under pressure. These descriptions travel. They move from one person to another, from one situation to another, and eventually they reach places you have never been. That is where unexpected opportunities often come from. Not from a single effort, but from a network of impressions that built quietly over time. This is also why some opportunities feel surprising. They came out of nowhere. But they rarely come from nowhere. They come from somewhere you stopped paying attention to, something small you did, something simple you offered, something you did not think would matter. On a deeper level, giving also protects something inside the person who practices it. In a world where many interactions become transactional, it is easy to become guarded, to see every situation as an exchange, to measure everything in terms of gain or loss. That mindset can work in the short term, but it often creates a colder experience of life. Giving interrupts that. It keeps a person connected to a more human way of moving through the world. And that matters, not just emotionally, but practically. Because people can feel the difference. They can feel when someone is only there to take, and they can feel when someone is willing to add something, even when it is not required. That difference shapes how people respond. Over time, it shapes who they choose to support, and eventually, it shapes who they choose to open doors for. In the long run, many of the most important moments in life are not fully planned. They are allowed. Someone allows you into a room. Someone allows you into a conversation. Someone allows you into an opportunity. And those decisions are often influenced by how you made people feel before you ever knew that moment would matter. That is why giving creates opportunities you cannot plan, not because it guarantees anything, but because it builds the kind of trust, memory, and presence that makes people choose you when it matters. So the next time a small act of giving feels too minor to count, it may be worth remembering this. You are not only affecting that moment, you are shaping how people will think about you when the next opportunity appears. And that is a process no one can fully control, but one that quietly changes everything over time. If ideas like this make you see life differently, you might enjoy the next conversations too.